Hey, hey, hey. So I thought I'd jump on because I'm doing some quilling. This isn't going to be any form of tutorial or anything like that. For those of you who know me, you know I love true crime. I've always loved true crime. I'm fairly obsessed with it. But there's a story that I've been looking into recently about this really young kid. He's 19, called Brandon Swanson. And I thought I'd quill and tell you all what I've been discovering, because one of the things that fascinates me massively are disappearances, right? When people disappear and there's no trace, because I find it really weird. How can there be no trace? Anyway, this centers around this young lad. He's 19. He's called Brandon Swanson. And he is a smart kid, really, smart kid. He's at technical college and it's coming up to the summer holidays. So everybody's celebrating. They're all having, these little sort of pocket parties around where they're all getting together. And Brandon attends his first party. So he's seen by lots of people. He does have a beer while he's there, possibly two. Nobody quite knows how much he drank, but he certainly wasn't drunk. He leaves that party, is in his car, and he goes to a second party. And while he's there, again, it's reported that he probably had a drink or two. But everybody there who was later questioned said he wasn't drunk, that he just had a couple of drinks and it wasn't anything, major in that sense. So he decides that he's going to drive back. Now, the probability is, because he'd had a couple of drinks, and obviously in the States, it's illegal to drink under the age of 21, whereas over here it's 18, that probably he decided he would take the back roads home. So he takes these back roads home, and he's in Canby. Canby is about 30 miles away from where he lives in Marshall, and he's lived in Marshall all his life. He knows the area pretty well. So he decides that he will drive back and find his route, but he's not going to take the freeway, because if he takes the freeway, obviously the police will be out in abundance because all the kids are celebrating. So he's like, yeah, I don't want to get caught doing that. So he decides he'll take these back roads. Now, the back roads are dark. It's really, really rural around there, really rural. So there is this kind of idea that he is sort of just trying the best way to get there. But the road that he takes is parallel to the freeway, and the freeway would be as the crow flies, pretty much. Like, he'd just be able to get straight home. So there's this kind of like, why didn't he just take that route? It would have been easier. Obviously, if he's trying to avoid the police, that makes a little bit more sense. But he starts driving back and he gets stuck in a ditch. So he is pulled over to the side and he starts ringing his friends. Now, it takes about 2 hours from him leaving the party to him bringing his friends. So that's a long time. That's quite a long period of time, right? So he's saying to all his mates, look, I'm stuck in this ditch. My wheels aren't turning. I'm absolutely fine. I'm not injured. It wasn't a crash. It's just stuck. And I can't, get the car out. But all his mates are drinking and they're like, well, try and make your own way back, sort of thing. So he's stuck. And he has to do what is every teenager's worst nightmare, which is call his parents when he's had a drink and he shouldn't have had. And his parents are Brian and Annette Swanson. So he rings them up and he's like, I'm stuck in this ditch. I'm heading towards a town called Lind. I think I'm nearly there. And if I am nearly there, I'm stuck in this ditch. Can you come and get me? So his parents drive straight out and they go looking for him. Now, they stay in touch with him the whole time that they're on the phone. So they're asking him where he is. He says he's in this ditch. He's near Lind, and he decides that he'll stay in the car until they get there. As his parents are driving, his mom's asking him questions and he can't find her and she can't find him. So they decide that they will start flashing their lights, honking their horns so that Brandon can see them and hear them, and he can't. So he starts getting frustrated with his mum and he puts the phone down on her, basically. He disconnects the call. Now, he gets back in touch and his dad starts talking to him, and they're talking for quite a long time by all accounts. And he's saying to them, look, I don't want to just sit in the car and wait. I can see the lights of Lind ahead of me, so I'm going to walk there. It looks pretty straight. It's a straight route. So I'm going to walk over and see you there. So he arranges to meet them in the car park of the tavern that's there. So his parents start heading towards Lind to get to that car park. And Brandon's talking to them the whole time, and he keeps saying, oh, I'm coming across these fences, and I'm doing this, that, and the other. And he also states that he can hear water running at one point. He says, oddly, that he is on a golf course. Now, it's important to note that it is really rural where he is. So all the fields are kind of, they're kind of fallow at that point. There's not a lot going on. So it's not like he's getting stuck in any kind of corn or anything like this. It's a clear route, but it's pitch black and it's very cold. And he's wandering around and he's trying to find kind of a route, this straight route back, but he's going through fields, etc. So Brian's saying to him, keep going straight. He's saying, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm getting where I'm supposed to be going. And they stay in touch. They're in touch for 47 minutes, which is a long time for this kid to be wandering around, right? You can get quite a distance in 47 minutes. Even I could get quite a distance in 47 minutes. So it's getting weirder and weirder. Anyway, at 47 minutes, after saying that he could hear water, Brandon suddenly says, oh shit. And he goes silent. That's it. So his parents are saying, Brandon, and he's not answering. And his dad has said since that it did sound like maybe he'd slipped. And if that was the case, what they think is that if he'd have slipped and he'd have really badly hurt himself, they'd have heard him scream or something, but there wasn't. All he said was, oh shit, and it went silent. So that's an oddity in itself, right? So they're sat and they're trying to find out where he is. They keep ringing him and it just keeps bouncing back, basically. There's nothing coming through. He's not getting anywhere with these calls. And he's, they're starting to get obviously really, really worried. So Brandon's parents call the police. And the first officer that they speak to says, well, you know what? He's a teenager. He's probably angry. He's probably gone out back to his mates to drink again. There's all of these things that could be happening. And his parents are like, yeah, but that's not really what Brandon's like. And also, he rang us for help. He rang us. And he desperately needed help. And the police is like, yeah. But so basically they hang up. And luckily his parents were quite smart. And they decided to ring again, knowing that they would likely to get a different officer, which they did. So not too much time was wasted, but some time obviously did go by. So they ring and the second officer starts kind of looking for ways of searching. And the first thing that they do is, they go with his phone. Where did it last ping? Where did his phone last ping? So they're doing all of this. Now, bear in mind that Brandon had said that he was in Lind, right? So when they find his phone and they ping it, it was actually coming from a town called Taunton. Taunton's 25 miles away from where he is supposed to be. 25 miles, that's a fair way. He has completely gone the wrong way. So that's why his parents couldn't find him. They find the car. So he's in this Chevrolet Lumina and they find it on the side of the road. Nothing too much to say about the car, really. It was stuck in a ditch, but there have been rumors that the doors of the car were open, which is quite weird because obviously it's a natural thing when you get out of the car to shut your doors. Whether somebody else came across it and just decided they'd have a look, make sure everything was okay. There didn't seem to be anything missing from the car, other than his backpack, but they think he had his backpack with him anyway. And the only odd thing, I suppose, was that his glasses were in the car and Brandon was registered blind in his left eye. So he probably would have needed his glasses, but also it's the middle of the night. So he might just have been like, I just want to get to Lind and we're coming back to the car tomorrow anyway, so it doesn't matter. So that's the only kind of odd thing about it, really. Anyway, the search sort of begins in earnest. And they're looking and looking. They get the dogs out, the police dogs, the search dogs. They also get the helicopters out. They're really going for it. And they are desperately looking for this young lad. They get hundreds of volunteers and they're all over this area. So obviously they're covering the fact that he was on the phone for 47 minutes from the time he got out of the car to the time when he had his disappearance. And they can't find him. He is nowhere to be seen. They do this massive search. So the police dogs, they trace him actually to a body of water and they find that he's gone into the water. So there's a big theory abounding that he drowned, right? That this kid goes into this water and that he has drowned for whatever reason. But it's problematic because, like I say, the dogs then sort of, they get a lead on him at the other side of the water. So it's unlikely that that was the case. But it's still a possibility. Nobody really knows. His dad obviously thinks that he slipped when he said, oh shit, and that maybe he'd befallen an accident at that point. There is a problem with that as well, in as much as if you go with that theory, then he would need to be kind of with his phone. So they've looked in all of that area, so where that was, and he wasn't. But if that wasn't the case and he'd actually dropped his phone or broken his phone, then he could have carried on walking, right? And nobody knows how long for. So that theory is a little bit wobbly, but it's probably the most sensible. Like I say, there is this trail of him going through water, so it does seem like he probably did walk further than when he actually lost contact with his parents. Added to that, there is, listen, there's loads of theories abounding. There's some people that think he was abducted by aliens. I'll let your imagination lead you on that one. So there's loads of stuff where people are like, well, what happened to his body, all of these things. The police then decide, look, we need to drain all these bodies of water, including the Yellow Medicine River. We're going to have to drain the whole lot and drag it. So they do. And there's no sign, nothing that indicates that he is there or was there. There's just no sign of this kid. And it's been obviously 17 years now since Brandon went missing, which is just like the trauma his parents must be going through is just unbelievable, right? You can't even imagine. It's every parent's worst nightmare. And there's no real further lead on it. It's just an absolute blooming mystery where this kid is. Now, one good thing that did come out of it, I suppose, if you can say that, is that his parents managed to get a law passed in 2009 in Minnesota. And that was to state that police have to act immediately when somebody is reported missing, regardless of their age. If there's any sense they could be in danger, the police have to act straight away. There can be no, let's leave it 24 hours and see what happens. We all know that the first 48 hours of any crime is like the most important, isn't it? So, there's that theory. The other thing is that people have suggested that maybe he was kidnapped or that there was, some serial killer on the loose. That seems pretty outlandish. Brandon wasn't in any way distressed, so that's unlikely. And the other thing that people say is that possibly he died of hypothermia because it was quite cold. It was only May, so it's still quite chilly. That if he died of hypothermia, you go into a state and you can do something called hypothermic burrowing, which is where your body takes over from your brain. And you'll burrow, you'll literally burrow like an animal, and you'll cover yourself in leaves and etc. etc. And that maybe this happened and he found somewhere that he could burrow, and that maybe that's been. But listen, again, that's problematic because the dogs were out, right? So if the dogs were out, they would have allocated him on that. It just seems unlikely. And so there's a lot of, I suppose, problematic bits and bats with that. Anyway, as I say, the law passed. It's called Brandon's Law, so you can go and look it up and have a look if it interests you at all. Obviously, I'm slightly more obsessive than most, but Brandon's Law is there to make sure that people are protected by the police when this happens. Hopefully, that will help a lot of other people. It doesn't, unfortunately, help Brandon. There are still searches that go on for Brandon every single year. Hundreds of volunteers go out looking for remains, looking for anything that might help find a lead on what happened, but nobody knows. Like, it's just this really bizarre, awful mystery. There are no traces of him, no traces of his clothes, his bag, any part of him. There's just no trace. And his parents, the worst part of this, well, obviously, is the disappearance, but one of the most heartbreaking parts of this story, and I find it really difficult because I understand it so much, and I think any parent watching it would understand so much. His parents still leave the porch light on every night, just so that there's this beacon for Brandon if he ever finds his way home. And I think the response from a parent is that you will never give up hope until you know for sure, right? And I think that's why getting the remains would be so important to them, because then they could maybe say goodbye. But because they don't know, how do you let go? How do you let go of your kids? So they leave the porch light on every night to get Brandon home, which is heartbreaking. And I think, like I say, it's totally understandable. You'd never give up hope. You would never, ever want to admit that this thing had happened, but it's been 17 years. Obviously, it would seem that something pretty tragic happened to Brandon. And it's one of the biggest mysteries that remains, certainly around the Minnesota area, but also sort of in America. It became like this national thing. Where is this kid? Like, he has to be somewhere. His remains have to be somewhere. And there's never been sight nor sound of the poor little lad who was having a nice night out with his friends. It's really, really heartbreaking. And it's something that really struck with me, I think, because obviously, I have two boys. One of my boys is pretty much that age. And just this idea, I know where my kids are all the time. I'm that obsessive parent that I've got my Life 360. I like to know where my kids are all the time. 2008, those devices weren't available. And he's already at college, so his college is 30 miles away. They trust him. He's a really good kid. He's really smart, really intelligent. And this can happen. So it's really struck me, this story, and I thought I would jump on while I was quilling and just talk to you all about it. And so leave you with a little happy thought for your day, because it's one of those things where, we see and hear these things and they're just passing stories, and they're always obscure. And I do enjoy sort of watching true crime and those things, but I think the reason this stuck out to me more than any of the others is the porch light. I just find that really hard. The porch light, that you're waiting for your kid forever, and it's 17 years later and they're still leaving a light on. And Brandon would have been probably in his 40s now. So just really tragic. So I thought I'd jump on and just talk to you about it, because I'm sitting here on my own quelling, so it seemed like a nice thing to do. Hey guys, hey Sammy, hey Michaela, hey Nikki, hey Sally, hey Donna, hey Sally Rayside, you wonderful human. I was going to ring you the other day. But yes, I will leave you all with that and let you decide what you think happened to poor Brandon. I don't know what I think is the most likely. I mean, it sounded like he fell, but I don't believe his end happened where the phone call ended, because like his dad says, there was no signs of screaming. There was no signs of real distress. It was just, this last sentence and then nothing. So I think the theory of his phone breaking or his phone going in water is probably more likely. His phone's never been found, I don't think. So I think that's probably more likely. And then he carried on walking to what he thought was Lind, when in actual fact, he's 25 miles, I think, southwest of that or northwest of that. So no way of finding him at that point for his parents. Just really tragic, isn't it? Really, really tragic. And I think the fact that these things happen will always remain pretty odd to us as parents. So there you go. Right. I will let you all go. It was lovely chatting to you all. And I think I'll probably do a few more of these because I find them really interesting. So I think I'll probably go live with a few of these cases just while I'm working, because I sit here most days anyway. So yeah, isn't it, Beverly? Really, really sad. Really, really sad thing to happen. Sally, I don't think you say, oh shit, if something's incredibly dramatic and suddenly it's happening. That's the thing. Like, there's so many rumors about, or maybe he got kidnapped, or maybe there was, some psycho on the loose. It's unlikely in this rural area anyway. He's in the middle of nowhere. He's in the middle, and it is considered he might be on private land. And that's maybe why they haven't found his remains, because obviously some farmers don't like you going on their land. And so maybe that's where he was, maybe that's where he remains. But it does seem like, I think he probably walked further than where that end sentence happened. I think he went further than that. Just heartbreaking. I can't imagine anything, listen, any kind of, incident like that with your children, murder and stuff is horrible. But if you have a body, you can say goodbye. To have somebody just disappear and you're on the phone with them, that's the other thing, you're the last voice they heard, which would be a comfort in some ways. Just, I can't, my brain won't do the things. I can't make that leap. It's just, and I don't want to. I don't ever want to be in a position where I'm making that leap. So I just thought I'd share that story because it is really heartbreaking. But I think I'll do, like I say, a few more of these for all the weird things and wonderful things that I find on the internet, and do a couple of deep dives while we're quilling or while we're doing some ridiculous sculpting or something that I turn my hand to at some point. It was lovely to see you all. I hope you're all okay, and I will speak to you all really, really soon. Please love your children, hug them, hug each other, and it's all important, isn't it? I'll speak to you soon.